Hello, and welcome to episode 58 of Brews Less Traveled, the podcast exploring the best uncharted craft beer scenes across the U.S. The U.S.? Was there a T in that word? There definitely isn't. I'm your host, Brian, and welcome back, everyone. A special hello to our new beer club members this month, and another special hello to our co-host for these episodes, my good friend Ben. How's it going, Ben?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm a little stressed, I will say. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I always stress out before I go because I think I'm going to forget something. And then I do forget something. It's confirmed every time.
You want to get the stress out now as much as you can before. Ideally, you're not stressed when you're away.
Yeah, I like that. That's a much more like healthy, proactive approach to it. I'm getting the stress out now, so then when I go on vacation, I can relax. I won't take my laptop with me. I won't work on vacation.
I don't have a healthy, proactive approach to most things, but in terms of stress, I feel like I've got you there.
I don't know if anybody just caught that, but I am so ready for a beer. I just grabbed our first beer and cracked it right open.
All right, well, let's do it.
No. Pause. We'll get there in a second.
All right.
Ben, you want to give us a little bit of background on your relationship with beer?
Yes, I have a long and storied relationship with beer. First and foremost, I am a brewery tour guide in person in Portland, Oregon for our sister company, City Brew Tours. I also lead homebrew experiences for Brewvana, and as well as other experiences for our other sister company, Unboxed, beer and cheese pairings, and what have you. But most of all, most importantly, I live in a wonderful beer state that is Oregon, USA. And my day-to-day existence is bookended and defined by beer and going to breweries.
Yes, I have visited your wonderful city where you live a couple of times, and the wonderful state where you live, and there's amazing beer scenes all over the place. Of course, Portland is known for having going back and forth with the other Portland as the most breweries per capita in a single city. Last I heard, they were sitting right around 85, but we're not talking about Portland this month. But
we are not.
I mean, I suppose Portland will probably sneak in there a couple times. But anyways, new episode, new month, new co-host. I think we all know what that means. We've got a new city to feature. And since I spilled the beans at the end of the last episode, there's no surprise when I tell you our next featured city is the Thunder Egg capital of the world, Bend, Oregon. Ben, you're a Portland resident. Do you ever get down to Bend? Bend month?
I Ben do not get down to Bend nearly as much as I would like. So if you look at it on maps, it's about a 3.5 hour drive, which for a lot of people, and especially people on the East Coast of the US, seems like it's probably nothing. But the deal with the Northwest and with Oregon specifically is that it's a treacherous drive. It's a very harrowing 3.5 hours. So the last time I was in Bend, I will be completely honest, I don't remember too much of it. There was definitely beer involved, as well as possibly some other recently decriminalized substances. Who's to say? I do know, however, that I had a wonderful time in that city, and I would love to go back. So I'm super excited that this is our featured city this month. A lot of the beers that we're going to be drinking are near and dear to me. So yeah, I'm ready to kick this sucker off.
Bend was a town I connected with. I could see myself living there. This was a town right up my alley. Great beer scene, of course, but you have one foot in nature the entire time you're in the city. The mountains are overlooking the entire area. There's beautiful hiking all around. There's a wonderful butte smack dab in the middle of the city that overlooks the city and looks out into the mountains. And there's great mountain biking and great streams and great snow sports in the winter. And it's just a excellent time to use my Pittsburgh a little bit there. That harrowing drive, I remember because I took a bus from Bend to Portland to take a flight out of Portland and come back here home. And I was just blown away. It's like we're in the mountains and then we go into the forest and then you're at the foot of, or not at the foot, but you're near Mount Hood and it's this dense, lush forest. And I was happy that I was not driving because I could look at everything. And also, yeah, it seems like it's up and down and it would not be an easy drive.
You drive through several climates in that 3.5 hours. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like Bend is a place where a lot of Portlanders move on to when they've established like, all right, what I want out of my Northwest life is this wilder, more natural existence. When you get tired of, and this is going to sound really silly, comparing Portland to other cities, but when you get tired of the hustle and the bustle of Portland city life, you want to move to somewhere like Bend, and then you can really relax. Because we joke that like Portland is a retirement city for millennials, but Bend is somewhere where you actually go when you've decided what you want out of living in this part of the country.
That's a very good way to look at that. I love that.
But yeah, the harrowing nature of the drive it's another great example of what I realized last year when I drove from Portland to you in Pittsburgh is that the more beautiful the drive is, the scarier it is. It always seems to correlate.
Yeah, and we will definitely be getting more into that harrowing drive across the country, and I'm sure other stories throughout this month. But those of you watching tonight are loyal subscribers. Shout out to you. We'd love to hear about your experiences in Bend and Oregon at large. So throw those in the chat. We're going to call these episodes here the Bend episodes. I'm going to get a lot of legs out of that joke, Ben. Get ready to get
That's
tired.
fine. You prepped me for this, and I won't die inside a little bit every time you do it.
So we're kicking off the month with 2 featured breweries. We're going to be drinking beers from Crux Fermentation Project as well as Bridge 99 Brewery. We're going to be sipping on the Crux Pils and the Tiramisu Porter from Bridge 99.
And Little Bird told me we've got a guest tonight as well. Jason Randles, the marketing director for Crux Fermentation Project, will be joining us. Can we crack open this beer now?
Yeah. I already cracked mine open. Let's
cool.
Do this.
Am I allowed to now? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes, you can. And if you haven't at home, you don't have to follow along and wait for us to open the beers. But if you haven't, please open that Tiramisu Porter and let's get into drinking some beers tonight. I poured heavy as always and got this big giant head of foam. Just try to temper that down.
I mean, apart from the fact that my background is bleeding into it, it looks mostly normal.
Yes.
There we go.
Folks, these are the things that you miss out on. That's what you miss out on when you don't join the live stream. Cheers, Ben. Cheers, everyone at home.
Cheers.
Very much tiramisu. Description from Bridge 99: using extra oat malt for a natural slight creaminess, and then concentrated small amounts of dark roasted malts for the coffee caramel flavor. We ended up with a very drinkable and not overly sweet porter, which I would agree with. Not overly sweet. Nice drinkable for our subscribers. Our friends at Bridge 99 also sent these nice coasters. I will add it to my collection of coasters here. And yeah, Ben, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's not as sweet as I would have expected from a beer named after a dessert. And so, I mean, a lot of places use lactose nowadays to get those dessert like flavors, and you often when it's not done quite as well, you'll end up with something rather cloying. This, however, just I mean, I don't know if there's lactose in this or not. It doesn't taste like there is. This is really actually well balanced, because in the other end of the spectrum, usually with a a darker beer that is in that dessert category is if it's not overly sweet, it's got this sort of not a hop bitterness, but like a coffee bitterness. But this doesn't have that. This is like actually really enjoyable, and I'm probably going to drink it really fast.
Well, good for you. We have a second beer tonight. Let's take a beer break and talk about the name of one of our featured breweries, Bridge 99. The brewery is named for the lower bridge that crosses the Metolius River in the Deschutes National Forest. The Metolius is a catch and release only river that offers anglers some of the most scenic remote fly fishing in Oregon. The lower bridge, also known as Bridge 99, serves as a marking point for anglers, with fishing restricted to fly fishing only upstream of the bridge. Downstream, a riverside trail continues from the bridge and provides access to some of the harder to reach areas of the river. The calm water evolves into rapids, with the potential for Class 4 hazards due to the number of tree branches that can make their way into the water. Nonetheless, anglers willing to make this treacherous journey can be rewarded with a one-of-a-kind experience. Our friends at Bridge 99 Brewery pay ode to this special area of the Metolius by taking Bridge 99 as their namesake. Now, let's get back to the show. We also got these cool passport books from our friends at I'm going to get this wrong, so I should probably look at it. It's the Bend Visitors Bureau. Visit Bend. Excuse me. Sorry to the people at Visit Bend for getting your name wrong. But thank you for these wonderful inclusions. And thanks for supporting us and supporting our listeners with great inclusions. I'm going to say inclusions one more time. And I think it's time we get right into the other part of the show. So please join me in welcoming the aforementioned marketing director for Crux Fermentation Project, Jason Randles.
I guess it would help if I unmuted myself and turned on my video. So here I am.
It's par for the course. A little bit of technical difficulties.
Thanks for having me, and cheers to my invisible can of beer here.
Cheers to the ghost beer.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome, Jason, and we'll get right down to it. I want to talk about the name, and this is something I think that'll jump out to a lot of people who aren't familiar with y'all yet. You don't call yourselves Crux Brewing Company or Crux Brewery. It's Crux Fermentation Project. I have some of my own ideas about what that evokes for me, but I want to hear it from you. Why that name specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great lead into, I think, the Crux story. And it goes back, we've been around for 10 years, and we were founded by a veteran brewmaster and a marketing agency guy that was very well versed in rebranding and doing some cool stuff. So when they came together, like this was a passion project for everyone, and just they were able to take their time and put a lot of thought into it. And there are a lot of breweries and brewing companies out there already. So to be a little bit different, we went with Fermentation Project, but also our master brewer founder, Larry Sador, just has always loved fermentation and had dabbled in other stuff prior to Crux. And so he wanted to leave the door open and not just limit ourselves to beer. And so since then, we have fulfilled that dream in making our own wine, making our own cider, releasing our own whiskey. And in the early days, we even dabbled in some pickling. So, but haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, I didn't notice any pickles for sale when I visited the tap room. There were many cool things about the tap room that I'd like to talk about, but let's start with the location itself. It used to be an Amco station, right?
Correct. Yes, it was an Amco transmission shop before it was Crux, and before Amco, it was a mill supply store for the lumber mills that operated just down the hill from us. And we're in the center of town. And so I'm jumping ahead here, but that's where the name comes from, Crux. We're in the Crux of Bend, the dead center, where the street names turn from west to east and north to south. And even though we're in the center of town, we're hard to get to because we got some dead end roads and some no outlet signs. So you just got to ignore those and you'll find us.
My Uber driver, when I first came there, was complaining the entire way of going around, and he like 3 times he was like, "Oh, it's right there, it's right there," but we can't get to it. It's right there. But
so we kind of love that. We're in the heart of town, but we're hard to get to.
So you mentioned as part of the name that you didn't want to limit yourselves to just beer, with it being a project of fermentation. I'm going to say a word that some of our subscribers might find to be a dirty word right now, but seltzers are a big hit in the industry, of course, they have been for the last few years. But you guys have gone a different direction, and you've actually started releasing non-alcoholic beers. And I guess the best way for me to round off this question is with the simple why.
Yes, why? Well, we skipped over the seltzer trend. Again, Larry Sador, our founder and brewmaster, has been brewing beer for longer than I've been alive, 40 plus years. And he'd gone through a few of those seltzer trends, and he wasn't that excited about hopping on this particular one. So we skipped that. And then when the NA came along, he's like, hey, you know what? I did a lot of those back in my time at Olympia Brewing Company and Pabst back in the day. And I need to redeem myself and make one that's worth drinking and one I'd want to drink. And so, and we have the equipment to do that and the knowledge to do that. So yeah, we've released Nomo is the lineup. That's what we call our non-alcoholic beers. We have an IPA, a hazy IPA. And then last week we actually released our third beer, just tasting room only as a test batch, but it's basically a hazy IPA brewed with the Strata hops, and they're all quite refreshing and tasty.
I want to follow up on something there. You said the equipment to brew it, without getting too far into maybe proprietary processes, does it take special equipment, or like what does that entail? Different from a normal brew system, you know?
Oh yeah, I may have misspoken there. I mean, we have a mash filter, which I think is kind of a secret weapon for us. I mean, that's not required to brew it. I mean, there's several different ways of brewing NA beers, and everyone's kind of dabbling it in different ways, whether it's the yeast strain that has low fermentation or whatever. But we brew it in the traditional sense of brewing beer, and we're not stripping it through an osmosis machine or anything, but we're just trying to make it pure and drinkable. And as we're all getting older and definitely not thinner, throwing in a few NA beers there in the mix helps out the calorie intake and the buzz factor.
That's great. That's great. I don't know if I don't think I've had anything from Athletic or any of the big NAs yet. So I have to, maybe I can talk Ben into shipping me some Nomo.
It's a trend it's blowing up. It's crazy. 5 years ago, no one was talking about or thinking about non-alcoholic IPAs, and now so many people are making them, and Athletic's crushing it. And we're doing pretty well here in our local market.
Well, it's funny because for a while, craft beer was let's not compete with the big guys. Let's not try to brew American Light Lager. Let's not try to do what they're doing. Let's jump and just do our weird thing. Let's do super hoppy IPAs and sour beers and stouts. And now it's like, whoa, we're coming at you because people want to come and drink at our fun tap rooms and enjoy the experiences we're having here. So we want to provide the things that, they're looking for. Doesn't matter who's doing it out there.
Exactly. And I think the trajectory is kind of the same. I mean, craft beer exploded because everyone was tired of drinking flavorless light beer, Miller Lite, Coors Light, whatever. And then I think the same thing with NA beers. All you could drink was O'Doul's and some of the others. And then Heineken came out, and then all of a sudden craft was like, hey, we can do this too and provide a flavorful option. And, the fans have spoken. We've received some great emails from our Nomo drinkers just saying thank you for brewing this, giving me this flavorful option. So those have been fun to see.
That's awesome. So you've been with Crux for 7 years now, watching the brewery grow and evolve over these years. Do you have a proudest moment?
That's an interesting question. I have not thought about that. Yeah. I've been with the company about a little over half of its lifespan. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. And I work with a great group of guys that we've all known each other for more than that, because we all worked together back at Deschutes for several years back in the day before Crux existed. But my proudest moment, man, that's a great question. I mean, one thing is just, I think getting this Nomo lineup off the ground has been a fun one to be a part of, and then just evolving the brand look and feel, since that's what I was brought on to do, and being able to just keep that fresh and come up with new designs for new beers has been really fun. So that's probably my favorite part of the job.
Awesome.
Well, as excited as I am to learn more about the non-alcoholic beer, I am more excited to crack open this Crux Pils.
Yeah, you need to catch up, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is a beer that I've had many times before. This is abundantly available in my neck of the woods, and I love it a lot. So I'm excited for everyone else to try it. And I was wondering if there was anything in particular that you want to talk about with this.
Yeah, Crux Pils is our flagship. We were, this is one of the first beers we went to market with in draft. And then when we went to the multi-pack format, this was the first beer we released in cans. And that was back before everyone was releasing Pilsners or craft Pilsners. So we were one of the first to get out there. And I think, it always helps to be first to market. And this is a beer we like to say that it's really hard to just have one. It's kind of like what was that chip commercial? Was it Pringles or Lay's where you just couldn't eat one? And I think Larry Bird was in one of those. I don't know. Yeah, this one goes down easy. It's 5.2% alcohol, 35 IBUs. It's brewed with whole flower Czech Saaz and Oregon Sterling hops. So that's one thing that makes us a little unique, is we do use whole flower hops to have the hop back to strain them out in our system. So we just like the flavor that they provide and the aroma. So yeah, that's Czech Pils. That's one we all have in our fridge all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't get old. It's just so good and so drinkable.
So tasty.
I will unabashedly say this is the beer I've been looking forward to the most in getting the box, because Jason, you and I met and walked through the brewery and had a very nice meeting. The first day I was in Bend. The second day in Bend, I started my day at Crux and had maybe a few Pilses to start off the day, because this is a beer I could drink every day, and it's so enjoyable. And something that maybe I didn't notice as much before or appreciate as much before is that aroma. There's a very subtle but complex aroma in there, and I think it's because typically with the Czech Pils, it's only those Saaz hops, and bringing in that Pacific Northwest character hop really adds a unique element.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a staple. It's a great beer. It's always on tap at our tasting room. We just did a little experimental version where we dry hopped this with the 586 hop, which is a really tropical forward flavored hop, and may have stumbled onto something there. That one's pretty darn refreshing during the summer as well.
So as you mentioned already, Crux was founded by one-time Deschutes brewmaster Larry Sidor. Sidor? I never know how to pronounce.
You got it right. For yep, Sidor.
What has it been like working with someone for so long whose impact on the beer scene in the Pacific Northwest cannot possibly be understated or overstated? Oh my God, I'm butchering this question.
Yeah, Larry is a legend. He got his start at Olympia Brewing Company back when that was your local brewery. That was before craft existed. And then from there, spent some time working for the parent company of Pabst once they took them over, and then went into the hop industry up in Yakima. So, and then before becoming the brewmaster at Deschutes, and then starting his own thing at Crux. So he knows literally everyone there is to know in the industry. It's amazing when you're traveling around with him. It's a 1 degree of separation type deal with him. So it's pretty fun. Just his knowledge. Like I said, that's what makes us able to brew this Pilsner in the clean, crisp way that it is, and our non-alcoholic beers, but also then to the opposite extreme, our Tough Love Imperial Barrel Aged Stout. And he's just a guy that doesn't quit, and the answer is never no. It's just he figures it out. So and then just with those connections. So Crux, I think, is special in that way. And even though Larry is kind of, he's stepping aside from the day-to-day of running the company, we're actually excited because that's going to free him up to tinker around and do the fun stuff, the stuff he loves, and so we'll see what the future holds. But that guy's 72 and worked harder than any of us, so I give him his props.
72 and just now stepping away from day-to-day operations in an industry that is not easy on your body and your mental health. I think that's really, really a special person, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a pleasure working with him, and just and working with him at Deschutes too, and some of the classic recipes that he came up with there that are still being brewed today, like Red Chair and the Abyss and the Dissident. Those were his babies back in the day.
Wow. I didn't know that he was the one that came up with the Dissident. That makes so much sense now. The success that Crux has had with its big beers, and yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. And his relationships with the hop farmer. So we get to play around with these hops. For a brewery our size, I mean, we're pretty small. We're only doing, 15,000 barrels a year, which I know it gets a lot smaller than that. But coming from a Deschutes that's doing, I think, close to 300,000 a year. We get, because of his relationships, we get to play around with hops before they have names like the 586 and 1019. And and then access to the fresh hops, and for the fresh hop season coming up here quickly. We're all getting excited for that for sure. And actually the photo in the background here, we grow hops on our fence, and we brew a beer every year where the employees get together and pick those hops themselves. Oh, nice. And throw them in the kettle.
So you mentioned briefly the difference in size between Crux and Deschutes, and you spent 17 years at Deschutes. So I was just wondering what the biggest difference between marketing for a brewery like Deschutes is versus Crux.
Yeah, well, most of my days last few years at Deschutes were spent marketing it in new states. So I had the pleasure of traveling to fun places like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, Philadelphia, DC, and then even when they were expanding to Roanoke. So the marketing efforts were focused primarily on that when I was there. Okay. And here at Crux, we're in Oregon and Washington, a little bit of Idaho, a little bit of California. So pretty local. And I like that, pretty local and regional, small. It's all about our tasting room, which is behind you there, and honing in that experience. I mean, right now it's like a mini brew fest at our tasting room every weekend with our lawn that we have, and people out there having fun and live music. So it's been fun to just kind of bring it in closer to home and be tied into the community in that way, versus traveling all over the world all over the country, which although was very fun at that time, this is more my speed.
You mentioned Pittsburgh, so of course I'm going to hone in on that. Were you here when Deschutes entered the market in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that was my job, was to help launch the beer into the market. Yeah.
Do you remember doing an event at a place called Caliente?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That might have been a little bit before I was there, and that was a craft beer bar that I worked at, craft beer bar and pizza shop that I worked at, and when Lost Abbey came into the market, Tommy came in and did an event, and there was a bunch of events there for release, entries into the market like that. And I swear I was working there when Deschutes entered the market, because I remember having a mirror pond for the first time and being like, I like this a lot more than the other very, very hoppy, non-balanced IPAs that I'm having right now. So yeah, just taking a side there.
Yeah, Pittsburgh was a fun town.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself here. You should come back. Lots of breweries here now. But people are going to get upset with me if I go too far into the Pittsburgh stuff. So to the chat, RJ has a great question. Saw the website has a sundowner hour. How long does that usually last in the summer?
Well, the sundowner hour is always a half hour before and a half hour after the sunset. So it's always an hour long. It just fluctuates to like right now it's as late as it's going to be, which I think is about 8:30 to 9:30.
Yeah, I was there when the sun went down the one night and it was gorgeous. You really have exceptional views there. So final question to wrap things up here. This is our question we ask most of our guests. What is one thing that you wish Bend was more well known for?
So I thought about that question since you prepped me earlier. And my response to that has to be Visit Bend has done such a good job of promoting it, and it's been written up in literally every magazine in the country that I don't know if there's anything that isn't known about Bend that people don't know. It's great for beer. You know, we've got a few distilleries as well. We got a kombucha, but you know, we're all about, like you said, we're all about the outdoors: fly fishing, golfing, hiking, biking, whitewater rafting. I mean, you can do it all here. So I don't know if there's anything that we need to be more famous for, because it seems like all the bases have been covered.
I want to touch on something in the chat that I think a lot of people associate with Bend from around the country. Stephen asked, last BlockBuster ? And I'm assuming I'm assuming you've lived in Bend for some time, working at both Crux and Deschutes now for well over 20 years. Do you remember when that was just like the normal BlockBuster that you would go to and get your movies from?
Well, here's what's funny. So there were 3 BlockBusters in town, and I would rent from the other 2 that have, you know, closed down a long time ago. I still have not been in this last BlockBuster that's had I think it's had a documentary on it. I drive by it, you know, frequently, and you'll see people standing out front getting their photos taken, and it's pretty interesting. And I should take my kids there though, right? I mean, the you know, that whole experience of having to go in and try and find something worth watching.
I'll tell you what, it was weird. I remember, I'm 35, so I came up like that was like the weekend night for us. Let's go get a movie at BlockBuster. So I had a very nostalgia. I had like a large desire for nostalgia going in there. And I walked in and it felt like a BlockBuster that I remember, with the aisle that splits off like this, and looked around, it all looked familiar. And then I started browsing movies, and it was almost like a culture shock because I'm so used to browsing on like HBO Go or Netflix or anything, that I was like, this is so weird to look at movies like this. I'm so jaded at this like process. I don't know.
You just have pictures and words. You can't just like hover over the case of the DVD and get like a preview or a trailer.
You gotta flip it to the backside to read
read.
Why can't, when I flip it over, it starts playing a trailer, or it just starts playing the first episode like on Netflix?
Yeah.
No, I'm showing my laziness. I don't know.
Well, I know that they used it as a venue for a while too, where they had like comedy and music shows, which I guess adds to, you know, that desire for interactive content once you've stepped inside. But I don't know if it would scratch the itch for the nostalgia necessarily.
I thought I heard you could rent it out like an Airbnb as well. Is that true? I need to look into that.
It sounds like something that they would have to do.
I mean, I think this is me terribly stalling while I look it up on Google here. There was an article from 2020 about it, but I don't know if it's still available. That would be awesome to just. What do they do? Do they just like, here's an air mattress, sleep on the floor over in that? Don't touch the
I could be
Russell Crowe
making
stuff.
it up. I don't know. Sounds like a cool idea though. Sleep in the last BlockBuster and watch a movie and eat some popcorn and call it good. I don't know. I guess I'll have to go in now. Let's just stop by.
I think you should, and I would appreciate a report back from you.
All right. I'll report back for sure.
No, thank you so much, Jason, for joining us. Where can people find Crux Beers?
Well, Crux can be found in most stores in Oregon and Washington, Northern California, a little bit of Southern Idaho. That's about it. And right now we're shipping Nomo online, just in Oregon and Washington, though, just because of the heat, just doesn't treat beer well when it's sitting in the back of a UPS or post office truck for a week. So we're going to take a pause on that as temperatures are hitting over 100 in places. So, but in the fall, we'll probably return back to shipping it a little bit more so on the West Coast side of things, but.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we love partnering with Brewvana like this, so people can get access to beers such as Crux Pils that they can't normally get their hands on.
Yeah, I'm very happy for this too, because I mean I got to have 2 more of these. Also want to say thank you for the hospitality when I came and visited. That was my first stop, and it was a great first stop that set up for a wonderful trip. Very much enjoyed Bend, and I think a lot of that has to do with the numerous Crux Pils I drank while I was there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I mean the beer scene here too is pretty robust for a small little town, so we're pretty fortunate here. And but Ben's in the hub. Portland's off the charts.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I mean, this Pils is an Oregon staple. I think it's safe to say at this point, and I am going to continue enjoying having my regular access to it. Literally at the Plaid Pantry just down the street.
Oh, excellent!
I can pound these all summer long. So
yeah,
so thank you.
Right on. Yeah,
for
Portland
you,
treats us well.
Well, thanks again, Jason, for joining us. Thank you, Ben, for co-hosting. Good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, very welcome. Looking forward to doing more episodes with you.
Likewise.
Maybe call back to our Christmas stream. Maybe I'll freestyle one of these days.
It has to happen, and I will ruthlessly demand that it happen until it does.
Well, maybe on that night we're drinking those 2 like 9% beers from Monkless. We can do that.
I saw those and I got hopeful.
For now, you can find more from the wonderful folks at Crux at cruxfermentation.com. You can also find more from our friends. The other episodes, this other episode's featured brewery Bridge 99 at bridge99brewery.com. As for us, head over to brewvana.com to continue your brews less traveled experience. Check out the blog over there, and you can also sign up for the beer club and get great beers like these shipped directly to you, so you can drink right alongside us here on the live stream. You can also follow us on all the social medias at Brewvana. We'll be back next week with our next featured brewery from the wonderful city of Bend. It's going to be Good Life Brewing Company. But until then, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Ooh. Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.